Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast with Robert Hyder. This is a no-fluff podcast where we dig deep into the journey of scaling your real estate investing and wholesaling business and discuss how to break into commercial real estate investing. Robert Hyder here with Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. For those who don't know me, I'll go through my journey a little bit here. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, a lower middle class family. First member of my family to traditionally go to college. Out of college, I got into commercial real estate finance. It worked out really well. I was one of the youngest vice presidents of commercial real estate lending in St. Louis at the age of 25. During my time, I underwrote over $1 billion in commercial real estate deals. And then transitioned into full-time entrepreneurial real estate investing in 2013. When I got into real estate investing personally, I focused more on real estate rehabs, did some rentals and wholesales as I was trying to learn the wholesaling game. I quickly realized that the wholesaling side of the business was more scalable, focused on that heavy, and over the 6 years had exponential growth. In 2019, we will have purchased over 200 houses for wholesale, as well as running a real estate brokerage that'll do 60 million plus in transactions. We started and have since sold a residential property management company. We made a big transition into commercial real estate deals. We own and manage over 110,000 square feet of commercial space, as well as 60 plus residential doors. And the reason I go through all this for you guys is to get into the mission of this podcast, the real reason that I'm here. This is for next level thinkers. We're gonna be talking about the newest ideas, the most innovative stuff. We're gonna be talking about the 1% and 2% difference, the it factor, the edge, the stuff that really makes some investors great while other investors fail. We're gonna be digging deep into work-life balance, mindset. We're gonna be having interviews with some of the top folks in the industry, both in the residential and commercial real estate investing sectors. As well as high-level finance guys, maybe even tech guys that have scaled big businesses. If you want to be the best investor that you can be, and you want to get opened up to folks that are doing huge things, how they think, how they make decisions, how they process data, you're in the right spot. What's up? What's up, guys? Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Super excited to have Mr. Justin Colby out of Phoenix, Arizona here. What's going on, Justin?
What's up, dude? Thank you for having me. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely, my man. I'm stoked. So we've known each other for a long time. I know a lot of your backstory, but you've gone through some really exciting changes lately. So instead of kind of piecing it all together, why don't you just give us a little breakdown of what's going on in your world?
Yeah, well, I'll keep it short for those of you who don't know me. I've been doing this now for 12 years. 2007 was my start. I did it kind of in reverse. I started rehab flipping first, and then I got into wholesaling. And so for those of you just getting started, if you're listening, start wholesaling and then get into rehab. But, to date, I've done roughly 1,400 rehabs or wholesales, a combination of both, and wholesales go in there as well. And over the last, as you just mentioned, Rob, the last 18 to 24 months has been crazy for me, dude, because I was given an opportunity quite a while ago to do a pretty big startup in the real estate space. And those type of opportunities don't come around often. And long story short, I took it. Well, what that meant for my actual company was I was completely pulled out of it. We leaned down. The company existed, but it really didn't do much, right? Like it kind of survived to pay my manager's salary and commissions, etc. And the stuff I was able to learn in that time frame while with this company was incredible. The quality of people, the organization, the system. I mean, God, it was incredible. But guess what? It didn't work out, right? And so I have been blessed with the opportunity to kind of basically press the reset button in a great way, right? Like kind of start from scratch. And I built my company up to, 7 people plus 12 cold callers at a time. And I've had this massive overhead and running. And now I basically have my main guy and I said, let's just do it. And so it's been a wild ride, dude. And that was a very quick 30-second pitch of what's been going on with me, man. But it has been fun. And I've learned the amount I've learned in the last, let's call it 24 months has been immense. And I wouldn't give it back for anything. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. So guys, and Justin and I have known each other for a long time. He's an absolute stud. So I'm really, really excited to have him here. But 1,400 houses, holy hell. I mean, that's a lot for anybody. So you've kind of been through all the trenches. And then I guess right around the time you were making the jump, you and I jumped on the call with the group because they've got a couple different arms. Obviously, you went to kind of help lead and build out the iBuying side.
That's
correct?
Right.
The iBuyer.
Right.
So, and then they also have a big finance side, which was really, really exciting to hear. And that group, I mean, they sounded just super impressive. Obviously, I don't know them like you do, but I was really, really impressed by what they had going on. So I can only imagine how great that opportunity was.
Yeah, it was a chance. I have some mentors that are completely out of the real estate space. They're just really successful humans and business owners and family men. And so when I was given the opportunity, I knew it was going to take me out of my company to the point where I'm out. I don't have the chance to do both. And I also knew it was going to reduce my income and all this other stuff. And they all said the same thing when I had to make that decision was what is the worst case scenario? If it doesn't work out, what happens? And I said, well, I'd go back to doing what I've done for the last decade plus.
Mm-hmm.
They're so take it, because what happens if it does work out? Well, I'm probably legitimately on a beach. You and I are probably not doing this call right now, right? Because,
I just have to come to the beach and catch you,
The outside was ridiculous, right? And so, but again, the quality of people, and it goes back to hiring and scaling. I was the 8th person brought into that company. And by the time I left, there was 69 people in that company in 10 months. And
wow. Their
recruiting, hiring model was something to be astonished from. The CEO and the president and the CFO, Ivy Leaguers, Stanford grads, not Harvard, I think Columbia grad.
Mm-hmm.
They had and both of them had the MBAs. One helped start Intuit, one helped start lending. I mean, it was the quality of people. And it just goes to speak, I used to be a big advocate of when hiring, hiring A-plus players, but also affordable A-plus players.
Yeah.
And I watched this company, a very real company, right? Very real, a lot of money behind them.
Sure.
Basically, they said, I'm going to hire the right person that is going to get us to where we need to go, regardless of cost.
Yeah.
And take it with a grain of salt, because you and I don't have $40 million sitting in the bank to make that decision.
Sure.
But the philosophy was just so changing relative to where I was at in my own business.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how the tech VC backed world works, right? I mean, they are struggling for talent. It's a race to get up to the top. They're growing revenue with less concern initially on bottom line, right? And they have the ability to kind of make those kind of cool, exciting hires with the hope that it pulls them up,
That's right.
Which, I mean, I think that's just an unbelievable opportunity to be able to kind of be around that for a little bit, because you're probably not, most folks aren't scaling at that same level with trying to do it with the income that's produced based on the company or with the, capital injection from them personally or from a small investment group. They're typically not making those same decisions as they would if they're, VC backed.
No. So it was a great learning, right? The reality is like I mentioned, I mean, I've had 7 full-time employees, which does not include 12 part-time cold callers in my office every day. So I've had that overhead. I've had the growth. I've had that. And I don't think I would do it again. Right. Well, I know I wouldn't. Let's put it that way. I know I wouldn't. But you get to see what the big boys with real money, how they hire is just so drastically different than I think most people in the small solopreneur, entrepreneurial 5+, they don't hire the same. And there's something to take from that, because those people are really hiring for the best person, not just someone who is the best at the right price, right? So it's been a great takeaway, dude. And dude, I couldn't be actually more excited. There's obviously hurdles and challenges now that I'm back, let's call it, that I have to overcome. Because again, the business is pretty much starting back at square one, and for the most part, ate up any and all liquidity that it had over the last 12 months to a year. And So it's, literally back to square one, but it'll be a fun ride, dude. And I've only been back for going on 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Dude, I've already seen, when I put my gloves back on, I put my helmet back on, my shoulder pads, dude, I've seen a massive difference already. So it's exciting.
Dude, it's exciting. So a couple of things. One, that's a really cool thing to be able to do, right? Because you're kind of like, I think anyone that's built something up, they get into it. And then once it gets to a certain size, you're like, okay, well, that you can't make the same decisions that you would have made before, because you have to kind of keep that ship going. The bigger the ship gets, the harder it is to turn, right?
That's right.
So you kind of went from a spot where you built it up and you knew what it was like. Then you go and work for a big tech company that was growing crazy big. And then now you come back and you say, okay, well, I'm back to square one.
Yeah.
How would I do it again if I could, and you can, right? So it's like, everyone kind of thinks that, and they're like, okay, well, if I sold off today or I stopped doing today and I picked it back up in a year, how would I do it differently?
Totally.
And you're in that spot, which is really, really exciting. So we'll dig into that. And then just for the folks listening, so we're going to do this podcast a little bit different. I'm really, really excited about it because it's kind of one of the first ones that we're doing in this format where we're going to we're going to talk about that specific scenario. So like scaling to be big versus starting back over and starting small and maybe staying small, and kind of going through all these different pieces and determining which is the right route and when's the right time to scale or to kind of stay lean and mean, and kind of all those different pieces. So we're going to just kind of have more of a candid conversation, just a couple of guys talking. So I'm really, really stoked about that in this scenario. And it couldn't have been about a better topic with a better person that's just really going through it. So I'm stoked.
Yeah. Dude, well, I appreciate it, dude. Again, and thank you for having me here, dude. I'm excited to get back to your tribe and all your listeners and all that.
Absolutely, man. So here's the deal. The premise of this podcast is to tell people and show people how to scale responsibly, how to grow a business, how to, get them in front of folks that have done so, get them in front of folks that are doing crazy things and have hit the bottom and bounced back up, or, have kind of taken that rocky road on the process and want to maybe get into, commercial real estate investing or other avenues of real estate, or maybe just other businesses altogether, but scale them up. But obviously, as we've been talking through this, you've had a really, really interesting viewpoint. So why don't you just jump into your viewpoint? So we're going to talk about scaling, when it's the right time, when it's not, what are the right avenues to kind of go about that? So why don't you kind of dig into your perspective and kind of what we've been talking about a lot lately, and specifically just in Vegas 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and like you said, we've known each other for quite a while now, and so I think we talk a lot about this together and in our masterminds and whatnot. And I think I've been able to develop, and it will continue to develop as time goes on, right? But I think I've gotten to a place where I really understand what it means to scale, the benefits of scale, at least in the small entrepreneur business, right? And then I've seen what it takes to scale big. And I'd tell most people on this call, probably everyone in pretty certainty, you're not going to be that. And if you do want that, that is great. And I'm your champion. But to be a VC company and a venture-backed company and in a tech company that big, that is a challenge beyond what is mostly conceivable. So I'm going to stick to where Rob and I play in the small 5, 7, 10 person company, and what my thoughts are on scale. Because in my opinion, looking at looking back and having 2020 vision, looking back and going forward with 2020 vision, right? I just made that up and time could be better. I don't really believe there's a need to scale big in our space, in the wholesaling and flipping space. There's not a big need, because then operationally you have cost to it. If the person who is trying to scale is not a good leader, and most are not, by the way, it is very hard to recruit, train, and keep a good individual. And then you lose efficiency. And I think one thing that Rob and I completely agree on is we want to be in this business for wealth. And that's going to happen through real estate. I love commercial. I don't have any commercial A, experience, but B, properties, right? And so one of my bigger goals as I now have this 2020 vision is the cash is great, but the cash will leverage me into wealth. And that will be in forms of residential real estate and commercial. And to build real cash, and I say this through straight experience, we were doing the highest amount of revenue in our business several years ago when we had the most staff, and we had the lowest margin of actual profit, right? We were in the single digit percentages of profit. And
net margin.
That is
net
a problem,
right.
By the way. That is a massive problem. And to be clear, it's not like I was taking all the money out in salary and it wasn't. Now, I think Marcus Lemonis would say it was egregious, but in my mind, it wasn't as egregious as it could be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that stay small and keep it all is a lot more my mentality these days. And I'm showing that and living proof of it as I go into this now. I'm going to stay in the business. There was a time where I lifted myself out. I started, obviously I have a podcast called The Science of Flipping, and I coach and all this stuff. Like, I was able to create that because I was able to lift myself out of the business.
Yeah.
But the reality is we would have made more money in the business if I stayed in the business, working the business, right? And that money then goes into wealth, right? It goes into, yes, I want to pay myself a decent enough income to live, but then I take that extra money and buy rentals, buy commercial, other things, right? And buy into other businesses. And you and I were just talking, like, you go in and you partner and you have enough money to say, hey, I'm going to bring in 25 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand to this partnership because I want to partner in this commercial property, or I want to partner in this business opportunity with you, Rob. Oh, you want to start a hard money lending company? Great. Here's 100 grand, I'm in, or whatever. But that's what it does. And that happens by creating the cash first, which when you grow, margins go down.
100%, right? So it's a unique thing. And really what happens, what I see in this industry is so many folks hit it pretty good. They're hard workers, they're hustlers, they're out there doing what it takes, and they're lean and mean. It's them and a partner, or them and an assistant, or something along those lines. And they're out there crushing it. And then they do pretty well. And then all of a sudden, they're making 250, 300 grand, to the bottom line, and they're stoked. And then they're like, okay, now I've got to scale. I did 25 deals, 30 deals. Now I want to do 100. And for some people, that's the right avenue. And that's kind of what the premise of this is. But there are a lot of folks that don't yet have the leadership and management skills to be able to do that. And then they want to take themselves out of the business so quickly that inherently it's always going to implode and they're going to go back. It's kind of the concept of the book E-Myth, right? Totally. It's like you get into it and then you don't have the basis around it. And then the reason why you're there isn't, you're not doing what you loved anymore, and you don't have the time to hand it off, and you're not hiring properly, and you're not managing and training properly. And then all of a sudden it kind of comes. And you really have to have a real clear expectation of what your goals are, where you really want to be. Because a lot of folks just get into it saying, hey, I want to do 100 deals. There's a bunch of people in this mastermind. There's a bunch of people on Instagram talking about doing 100 deals. Yeah. And in reality, it's like, either because they're pitching something to you, or two, because they have a reason for wanting 100 deals. You can't just choose 100 out of the thin air and say, I'm going to scale that, and I need to have 7 more people on the team to do that, and then realize you're making the same amount of money, and now you're just juggling people. You got huge amounts of payroll. You're making single digit margins like that. Not to say that was the scenario, but that's what you see a lot, right? Because they scale up so fast, they hire the wrong folks, and then they don't train them, and they're wondering why this person isn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And honestly, like I could point the finger back at myself because I've run into that same trap with our first couple of acquisition folks.
Sure.
And we deal with that, and it's, either you've got to choose exactly what you want out of it. Like, are you good with making that amount of money and you're scaling up so that at some point you kind of meet that critical mass where you've got the back office and then the remainder falls to the bottom line and it's just a scale step?
which is kind of what the VC guys do, just at crazy scales, right?
Crazy numbers.
It's just nuts. And then, or from that point, you say, okay, well, I'm okay with it running, making a skinnier margin and knowing that it's going to be a little bit less efficient than if I was running it, but I'm able to sneak 20 of my 40 hours a week or 20 of my 50 hours a week to go and focus over here. And hopefully that's a better, more profitable use of your time, or you're doing it for a lifestyle style business. And that's where you're kind of going. So yeah. It's crazy. And we've talked about it a bunch of times. I'm really excited about your kind of new change in the viewpoint, because I just think that a majority of folks that kind of get stuck in that trap, and we see it all the time in these masterminds and stuff, and it's just, they don't quite know why they got there, and they're just there, and it's just, okay, now you're stuck, and it's so hard to right that ship, And
I take on, a handful of personal clients, like coaching clients, and a lot of our conversations revolve around this, quite frankly, and you and I see it in the mastermind all the time, is you get to this place. Can I swear on this? Like my podcast, I can swear. Like,
yeah, 100%.
But like, who gives a fuck about 100 deals? It is completely arbitrary. There's nothing valuable about 100 deals, right? If I can do 20 deals and make the same as I could doing 100, I'm going to choose 20. It's just less work, right? It's just common sense in that sense.
Right.
But what you brought out about the Instagram, the Facebook, and, it's all about, whose car is faster. Right? Whose thing is bigger, right? But unfortunately, I did get caught up in that several years ago. And, again, being able to look back on that is silly. It's stupid. It's crazy. And I now have an ability to press that reset and be genuine and authentic and be able to bring value to people and say, guys, who cares? Like, you can live an incredible lifestyle doing 35 deals a year and have an awesome lifestyle with just yourself working this specific business. Mm-hmm. No one else, maybe an assistant, I would suggest, right? And so I think this business, specifically wholesaling, is not scalable in my humble opinion. I know there are companies out there that are doing well. I have a personal client that I worked with, Nick Perry, has done very good nationally wholesaling, but he still has an office of, I think, 5 people in his office every day doing it. He's not scaling to like offices. Like that whole idea is ego driven, it's pride driven. And that was one of my reset buttons, was like, I'm taking all that away to the point of like, my car. Like I'm thinking about who needs it. Like I have a Maserati. Like I'm like, what does this do for me? Right? It feels great. I love it. Heads turn, great, fine. But that's ego driven, it's pride driven. I'm like, yeah, but if I could have half the payment or even more than that, and then I could take that and do other things that are actually going to create a better future down the road, whether it's a year, 10 years, like, so I'm a lot more on that, and doing the work allows you to keep more, right? And I'm only talking specific to where you and I play primarily, which is the rehabbing / wholesaling business. It is so much more empowering if you look back in your accountant says you have $150,000 of taxes you owe. That sounds like a big fucking number. You know what that means? You made a much larger number, and you paid yourself that larger number. Sure. So pay your taxes, first of all. But second of all, like, that means you're doing really good. If you get a tax return, that means you're not. That means the government owes you money back. That's not great. Now, you and I both know, yes, there are ways that rich people can do things and tax breaks, and yes. But I'm talking to the normal human making anywhere from $0 to $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year. That's what I'm talking to. So going into this, man, I'm getting back to doing the work. I have my main guy, Anthony, and myself, and I've already been able to pull 6 deals out of thin air, by the way, because I'm back doing it and I'm the best at it. So sure. Why would I not do it? Why would I hire someone to go do that might be 50% as good as me, maybe 75? Like, and then I also get to like right the ship and build up that war chest again. And then I have options again. So when a buddy of mine comes to me, like they did 2 years ago, and said, hey, you want to invest in my title company and be a part owner? Shit, yes. How much? 25 G's. Done. Literally right then and there. No problems, not a thought. The money's there. Who cares?
Sure.
And now I have a big annuity at a title company, right? Like, it's awesome. So that's my perspective. I mean, it's not too much more deep than that. I think there's some philosophical life stuff that, like, I'm getting married in 2 weeks, which is cool.
Yeah.
And so now I am more thinking about my future, right? Just like you and your kiddos and your wife. And I know your wife, I haven't met your kids yet, but like, you have to think different. The thing that I realized when I was single over the last 10 years, and you knew me, I had no other thought than how much more fun can we have? Because I have the money to do it, right?
Yeah,
like, that was my thought. And, right or wrong, that's where I was at. And now I have different thoughts and different realizations. And I see people playing at a bigger level. We have some mutual friends that just make a god load of money. And they have businesses that are basically big annuities. And they have 60-something door rental properties. And they have, but I'll tell you, they also work their face off. Because they also, both of the two individuals I'm thinking of, one has 3 kids, the other has 4. They're not scared to get their hands dirty, and they continue to work. And I think too often in our space, the people that you see, whether maybe you watch some of my older stuff or some others talk about scaling a business and growing and escaping and getting away from it, there is a time and place for that. But it only as long as you're willing to do the work to get yourself there. And people try to make that decision too early. They start making $250,000 a year. Maybe they start making $500,000 a year. And they basically literally like wash their hands of it. Okay, well, I'm going to live the lifestyle because Justin told me, or so-and-so's podcast told me. $500,000, $250,000 is a lot of money. I'm not ever trying to take away from that. $500,000 is even more. But the reality is, for you to all of a sudden just have this lifestyle, you're not there yet. You're just not. Not in my opinion. Not how I'm taking on the future and where I want to go. That's just not enough money to do it. Right? You still have to get in the trenches. Go ahead.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, and I think the key is here, right? Like, when a lot of folks are, let's back to you for a second. Like, when you were scaling up, like, did you have a real clear idea of what your goal was beyond just doing a bunch of deals, like feeling really cool about it, kind of living this badass lifestyle?
No, that was
right.
it.
You're just doing your thing, right?
You hit it right on the head. Live a badass lifestyle, look cool on Instagram, make a bunch of money. There was no like, I want to build this thing. Here's how you do it, structured it. No, it was like, how much money can I make? How much fun can I have? And let's go. That was it. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Well, and so that's it, right? So it's like, I think that is a huge piece, and it's so basic. It's almost so basic that it sounds like cliche, but most folks skip it. It's like, what do you really want out of it? And which is so cool. And that's why I'm really stoked about this conversation, because you had this awesome opportunity to go and do this thing. You've learned a ton, and now you're back and saying, okay, not if I could do it over again, I'm going to do it over again. And this is what I'm choosing to do. And you have a goal, you have a thought process of where you want to be, like what the finish line looks, well, not the finish line, but what the relatively near term finish line, 2, 3, 4, 5 years finish line looks like. And here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it differently. And I'm going to focus on being more actively involved, having less overhead, keeping more, doing my thing. You probably don't have to work too terribly hard once you get the ball rolling again.
Totally.
Like, it's not like you got to go out and crush it for 60 hours a week still, because it's just going to be you and some other folks. Like, you can rock that out.
That's right.
And so it's really exciting. And the key is knowing what your goal is, like knowing where you want to be. So like,
and it's not deals, just so we're clear. I don't give a shit. If I do 20 deals in 2020 and make the number that is my goal, fine by me, right? Like, I don't give a shit about deals and volume and whose is bigger. Right? I'm out of that competition, bro. Yeah. I want to become really wealthy, right? And I have to put in the work to get there. And maybe I'm crazy because everyone else wants to be flashy, and I was that guy, let's be honest. But
everyone starts there.
That's it. And so now I'm ready, and I'm ready to put in the work. But by the way, I didn't have to get back into the business. I think that was one of my coolest realizations too, is like, I had options. When people heard like I was no longer with the company, dude, I had people being like, hey bro, I need you help. Like, I'll pay you this. I started having a lot of options.
Sure.
And my want was to get back into my business. That was my want. I didn't have to. and I could have taken on this project or that project or, this partnership and grown. And I said, dude, I love what I do and I'm really good at it. And I'm a really good people person and I love helping and I love making money and I love doing good and I love this business. And so I chose that to come back into it. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
No, I think that's super cool. I mean, but I think the key is obviously you've figured out what you want. You figured out what your goal is and you're working towards it. And it's not deal count. It's probably some kind of income basis so that you can stack the coffers and then you can make certain decisions. And you've also realized, hey, and this is kind of something that we've talked about a little bit before, I'm more of a real estate guy. That's just inherently finance and real estate. Those are my things, right? So while you realized it very, very quickly, and it took me a little bit of time to realize it, but on the wholesaling side of the business, it's not a real estate business. It's a sales and marketing business. You market for deals and you buy an asset and you resell the asset for more. That's it, right? That's it. So, that asset happens to be real estate, it happens to be houses or multifamilies, but in reality, it could have been cars or widgets. It doesn't freaking matter, right? It's just, it's sales and marketing. And you've been fantastic at that. And that's kind of your thing. You're a people person. I'm out there talking to folks. And then you've leveraged that into, title company business and some of these other, kind of other businesses. While, for me, it's more real estate based. So, where we are scaling and we made 100 mistakes and fortunately, we powered through them and we're kind of doing different things and we've got a pretty good sized staff, but we also have, a handful of different direct real estate related businesses. And that's allowed a lot of our infrastructure and a lot of our scale to occur because, we do a lot of wholesale deals and we've got, 5 sales guys now out there kind of hitting the streets and we've got all of that. But our back office also supports not only our wholesale business, but, we've got a good sized rental portfolio on the multifamily side. Obviously we're growing pretty heavily on the commercial side. I got 110,000 feet of office and retail space and another 56,000 feet under contract to close in February. So thanks, man. I'm stoked about that. Yeah. But and then also a senior living rollout and a couple of other things that are directly tied. And it's been a struggle because you kind of look at it differently. Like I knew that I wanted to be like you're saying, I want to be wealthy. I want wealth. I want this. I want that. For me, it's always been wealth, but as it relates to that. So the wholesale side of the business is kind of the flywheel. It's the thing that produces income. It allows to pay for the back office and do all of that. And then the back office and our infrastructure has allowed us to build out these other arms of what we do. It allows me to go out and focus on commercial real estate purchasing and that side of the business allows us to build out our senior living side of the business and our hard money lending. So kind of these other offshoots, which would have been very, very difficult if I was trying to stay in the wholesale business. That's right. So, and I think, and it just comes down to the direction and the goal of what we inherently want. And it took me a really long time. I'd go to all the mastermind events and I'd be like, man, all these guys are living these crazy lifestyles and they're doing all this. I'm like, how is it? Yeah. And I didn't really put enough emphasis on the amount of time that I was focusing on really 2 other businesses without really thinking about them as other businesses. I just kind of figured I was in real estate and we do wholesale and this. But in reality, like the wholesale business is its own arm. It's its own, tier of the business. And then the rental side is its own tier. And then, back then it was rehabbing. We were doing a lot of rehabs, as you know. We've slowed that down and kind of scaled. But
so to that point, you at this moment in time, right, you are comfortable with the income you're making. So when that extra revenue starts coming in, you can take the revenue and higher in scale. People don't do that. People don't say, okay, I'm comfortable making 250. I'm making this up. I don't know how much you pay yourself, but I'm comfortable making 250 grand. This wholesale / rehab flipping business is now making more money. Well, instead of, paying myself more, why don't I start to leverage other people, bring people into the business for a different division, call it commercial real estate. Now I have a TC or I have a supervisor or whatever, because I can pay them the extra 50 grand that's coming into this business to supplement the start of this business. And that is how you would do that. So I would say the way you were doing that, I absolutely say 100%, but you can't also increase your income and live a lifestyle and do that, right? That's what people are trying to do. They're trying to live the lifestyle, make as much money as possible, and hire people and do other shit. And I'm like, I just disagree. Like, I don't know where you're going with this.
It's the wrong way to scale. You can't just scale, take yourself out of the business, hire all these folks, not manage them, not have an operator. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. Make more money, pull more out of the business and be there less year two.
That's right. I mean, you're 10. Like, I've been doing this 10 years. How long have you, you're 10 plus probably?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, even year 10, there's times where like, now is not the time to hire, right? Like, just because you're in it for a long time doesn't mean you have to grow or scale. So that's why like people just get this. I think it's revenue and income based. I don't think it's year one, you go out and make $1 million. Do I think you should probably have a personal assistant to be able to help yourself? Yes. But it doesn't mean you go build this big business out, right? Year 10, you go make $1 million. Do you need to go grow because you're a 10-year veteran? No. Like, I just think it comes down to making the right choice. Again, my decision would be get comfortable with your income, and then that extra income, because your business is successful, place it into what you believe will create either more income, better lifestyle, or wealth. So in your scenario, I love it because you're so good at the financial side, the operational side of like the commercial world. Taking that, let's just use an extra 50 grand and paying a full-time manager of that has massive value to you, because looking back in 10 years, you'll be able to say, well, now we have 1 million square feet of commercial real estate. We have X, we have whatever. And it's because you didn't go take more money for yourself. You said, I'm going to build this business with the extra money. So,
yeah, absolutely. And that is a big piece where we are very conservative on what we pay ourselves and how we pay ourselves. And we roll so much forward, whether it be into other new business offshoots or investing in other businesses or buying assets or whatever it might be. That's absolutely the case. And then also trying to leverage other employees. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's like the business isn't going to really work super well if you hire someone for $50,000 to do that role, and then you make another $50,000. You're going to be like, okay, well, I'm making the same amount of money. Yeah, I've got this other person. I think that I'm working a little bit less because they're taking over these tasks. But more times than not, folks haven't probably trained them or have the management or leadership skills just yet to be able to just go ahead and offset that off. So you're actually making up, you're not gaining 20 hours a week by handing those tasks off,
100%.
And then you get up to 5 or 10 employees. Well, now you've got the headache and burden and HR related issues and, sick days and, just headaches of, the damn refrigerator. Someone ate someone else's lunch or, all this dumb stuff that comes with having a lot of folks. And then it's like, okay, well, you can't just totally check out of all of that. And you sure as hell can't say, okay, well, I'm paying all these folks, these 5 folks, $50,000 a year. So if I make another $250,000 a year, awesome. I can pay for all these people and I make the same amount of money.
Right.
Like that's a failed system. That's never going to work for anybody. Right. And they always think that, okay, well, all right, well, I'm going to have more time, but it typically doesn't work out that way. So you have to be able to leverage your employee base, right? So those employees have to be able to make you typically 3 to 4 times, if not much better than that, the amount of income that they receive.
Otherwise, why do it, right? Like, why grow another division? Go somewhere unless you can 3x your business revenue, wealth. Why?
There's no. Well, you almost have to. You almost physically have to be able to cover it all, because there's a lot of other stuff that you're not predicting, and then you need more office space, and you need it just kind of grows out.
That's right.
And I don't think folks the people in our industry look at things that way. They look at other spends that way. They're not jumping into new marketing channels if they're not going to get 3 to 4 times the return on that marketing channel. They're not going to jump into, Google pay-per-click or whatever and say, I'm going to spend $10,000 a month in this marketing channel and not expect to get $30,000 or $40,000 in return, or else it wouldn't be worth it. Because if you just got 10,000 back, you'd be like, oh, shit, okay, so I spent it and I'm hoping I'm going to get it back. And then, and just, it's a big waste. So they've got to actually, you have to be able to leverage that properly, but I don't think most people think of it that way. And they don't have.
I think a lot of people, I think one thing we need to separate out is like investing in a business is different than creating a business. Right. And that's something that I realized really early on is like I'm a co-owner of 7 different companies. Cool. Some have zero to do with real estate. Like I have an Amazon business. I don't know if you knew that about me.
I didn't. Awesome.
I have a partner who runs it all. I'm the money. It's perfect investment for me. I do nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's not some multi-million-dollar conglomerate, but I love the little annuity I get.
Sure.
I have no problem with it. It's a great investment. It's my company. Now let's say, Rob, you said, hey, I'm going to start a hard money lending company. Jay, you want to be a part of it? Great. Well, am I going to really go out and somehow operationally make your business better? No, but maybe I throw $100,000 at startup cost and I get a percentage ownership and then I help raise some money and then I'm done. So I made the investment in the company you're starting and you're going to run whatever and I'm done. That is different. And I think in my perspective, I'm a lot more in alignment with that these days than trying to grow something myself. That's why I said from the beginning, if I can just make my wallet and pocketbook bigger doing what I do so well, then I have the options to do all the other stuff. And by the way, I don't even have to own it. I just want to control it, right? Like I want to control that other business. I want to have the opportunity to give influence on what will make that business better. Yes, ultimately you have some sort of ownership, but it's not ownership in the way a lot of people think, where I need to own something LLC and create this thing. That's all pride and ego.
Well, and more times than not, folks are jumping into that avenue, especially in the wholesaling game, because they don't have the ability to throw $100,000 or $200,000 at a startup and be a passive investor, right?
That's right.
So they're still building up that base to be able to do so.
Yeah, and again, I'm a decade ahead of that, right? So I'm for those starting, I apologize, but that's where you should be thinking. I mean, you should be listening to Rob constantly in every episode that comes out, right? It's because you need to think the way Rob's able to think 10 years into this business.
I mean, 100%, right? I mean, that's the goal. That's you build a business up and you either have it and you do get it up to a scale where you've got a solid staff and it's operating and you can manage it from, a scorecard if you choose. A lot of folks don't want to be out of it. They're terrified of that, but building it up so that you have the ability to do so with a good solid staff over a period of time is fantastic. And then by doing so, you produce a ton of income. And then now you have the money to invest in other businesses and you can be passive and do your thing. Or you build that business up, you sell it. It's a little bit harder on the wholesale side, but, just typically speaking, build this business up.
That's a great point, dude. I have had so many conversations over the last year. I'm going to build this thing up and I'm going to have a sellable asset. And I'm like, you're going to do what? Understand, wholesaling as an industry is people. You're not going to be able to sell people. There's no asset. It is not a commercial real estate business like you are building that you can sell the actual asset and the management of it, right? Like, again, I don't want people going into this business thinking they're going to build some conglomerate that they're going to be able to sell. You're going to end up selling the real estate or the management of said real estate. That is sellable, right? And I think people, I don't know if it's something out there on the interweb and the social medias that people are talking about this conglomerate, we're going to sell this and we're going to get out of your own way, man. That's not what this is about. It is a good, what's the right word? It is a good funnel to wealth. That is what wholesaling is. It
100%.
Gives you the options. I love your commercial real estate play because that will be sellable, right? You're building a business that you will sell the asset and the management along with it. You potentially get bought out by some much larger corp. Like, that is the real deal. That's a business. Wholesaling is a cash grab. That's what wholesaling is, because that cash gives you the opportunity to do other things.
Well, it's a sales and marketing business, right? And more times than not, the profitability and the success of that business is directly related to the owner, right?
100%.
So that's what makes it so closely related. It's kind of like a brokerage, right? Where it's like there are brokerages that sell at a multiple of multi-year earnings, right? Or an average of multi-year earnings. It's not a huge multiple. It might be 1.5, 2 times tops, right? But it's because over 10 years or 5 years, that brokerage that is maybe based up of a name, but has 30 agents out there working, and they stay there, and they're kind of constantly turning. You can show that it's got repeatable business, and maybe the owner is very, very passively involved. They're there kind of, that business is incubating and doing its thing and producing replicable income, right? So there's some belief, or there's not a belief that actually happens, where it's like, okay, well, that will continue independent of having that owner there. So someone could buy that business and roll it into an existing business or take it over and run it, right? Because the management team, the structure, everything's already there, the systems, the processes, the people, the sales folks, the dispo people, your contract coordination people, all of that is in place. But there are very few folks that have a wholesale business that's like that. Almost all of them are directly tied to the owner. It's not as though they have, a COO that's not a partner that's actually running all day to day, or an office manager, and all these different positions filled. It's very seldom you get it up to that scale. And I think people are totally missing that, right? I mean,
That's right.
I think hypothetically, a wholesale business could be sellable at a margin that would be similar to, or a multiple similar to a brokerage, but you would have to make it truly be managed and ran without you. Because if it's solely dependent on you, then it would never, ever work. Because if you leave, then you have nothing, right?
The only thing that we can relate it to is home investors, right? And I think they've licensed their franchises. I don't even know, but franchise and or license, I don't know what they do, but that's what they're doing, is they're basically selling you a business in a box.
Right.
Selling your franchise is very difficult because you're selling the people, right? Like usually other franchise owners are the ones that buy that said franchise that is for sale because they're in that market anyways. They get that much more. The way they work is like the round robin thing. They get that much more calls coming into them. It makes sense. But as a whole, like a home investor couldn't sell me their franchise necessarily because I don't have any interest in it. Like the business in a box I've already built. So I just don't think it's sellable. I mean, what you're doing is sellable. Memphis Invest is sellable. Wholesaling is a cash grab. It's a cash grab.
And I think we differ on that a bit. And it's probably because of a couple small variables that we're assuming. But honestly, because when it really comes down to it, right, it's and don't get me wrong, 99% of wholesale businesses probably are not sellable. I'm with you. Sure. It's a cash grab, and it's so directly dependent on the ownership. But I think there are groups that could build it up to an avenue where the team is in place, the systems and the processes are in place, and someone else, a third party, could step in, manage all of those folks, and it could continue to produce a replicable income based on the system processes, marketing channels, all the defined stuff that is in place.
Who could do it? Like, and you'd probably get with this, like you could bring in Blackstone and buy your business, right? Say, here is literally the business. There are 8 employees. Here's how many deals we do. Here's how they do them. Use marketing. Buy us, and all of our deals go to you, Blackstone. Right?
Yeah. Like you're going to buy 500 deals in our backyard anyway. Here's the channel to do it at substantially lower price.
Right. So that could happen. I could see that happening. But let's call it what it is. That owner of that company, they're going to stick in that business for the next 3 to 5 years to keep it profitable. Now, at the end of that, he has his big payday, right? Mm-hmm. Just like most businesses, and I don't know how many people know this, but like most businesses, when get sold, the CEO or the president or the founder has to stay in that thing for anywhere from a year to 5 years to make sure it stays on the tracks for the new company, right? So that's typically how things happen. Sometimes it's a big payday, but more often than not, that founder, owner stays in there to make sure people keep doing it until said new company can replace them if need be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you kind of scale out, right? You stay in there and you help operate, you help ramp the other people up, and they want to make sure that you're vested, right? So they'll typically pay you some amount up front, 25, 30% up front, and then you'll get a salary for, the first year. You might get a full salary, and they'll scale you back to 80% year 2 or whatever, and they'll kind of stair step you out, probably with a buyout provision if they can get it up and going with their own folks soon enough.
Yep.
Which most owners are happy to have. They'd rather be bought out before the 3-year period or whatever. But that's exactly it, right? And that's kind of the same concept as a brokerage, right? A brokerage doesn't necessarily have reoccurring income coming in. It's only as good as its name and its agents. So they want to make sure the folks are in place and kind of doing their thing, which is the same concept. And that's why it doesn't trade on a whole lot more than 1 times earnings, 2 times earnings at the max, because it's just, you can't assume that it's going to keep producing. You don't have long-term contracts to buy and things of that nature.
That's right.
Roland Frazier, he talked about it a little bit. He's like, hey, if you want to make a wholesale business scalable, you need to bulk it up. You need to link it up with a couple other businesses so that it's got kind of multi-avenues. So maybe bundle it up with a property management company so you've got reoccurring contracts, and then maybe bundle it up with a brokerage, and then maybe he had some other kind of concepts. Can't remember exactly what it was.
Bolt-on businesses. I agree with them. And that's why I kind of we don't have to go round and round, but that's why I say, as a general sense, a wholesale business, no. You bolt on property management, you bolt on brokerage, you bolt on hard money lending, you bolt this whole thing together. I like it. Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not, it's more devil's advocate kind of going back and forth than anything. Yeah. I'm with you. I think a vast majority of wholesale businesses are not sellable, and that's just kind of it. That's your income producing avenue. That's kind of the money tree. And then you either bolt things on so that those things are your value adds. Those things are the sellable businesses. Those are, whatever it might be. Or you focus on actually investing in real estate or investing in other businesses or whatever. You reinvest the income that's produced, and that's your wealth producing source,
That's right.
Which is, I guess the avenue that you were kind of touching on there.
Yep. I think, bolt-ons are amazing. I tend to do more of that than anything else. You talk about being in real estate. I'm the first one to fess up. I don't own any actual real estate. Even my beautiful, condo I live in now, which is great, beautiful, I don't own it. And not because I'm 100% don't want to, but I've spent the better part of my, career stacking up cash and then taking those and investing in other things. In combination, Phoenix has been a very interesting market. It's always been kind of appreciating over the last decade or so. And so you're always kind of like, well, it's not a great time to buy. And so I've always kind of had that. I'm waiting for the decline. It's never fucking coming. All that kind of stuff. And you put that all together. But the reality is that has been my new mindset shift, right? In whether it's single family homes or condos or commercial, the reason why I want to make a lot of money now is not necessarily for the nicer things, because that was a lot of what I was doing when I was single. Now it is more for the hey, is there a commercial property I can take down? So those are the type of things that my mindset has shifted in large part based around where I'm at in life, not being the single guy anymore, not having necessarily the desire for just being flashy to be flashy. And that's a lot.
Well, no, and I think that's awesome, right? You just kind of define where you want to be and how you want to be. And honestly, you're not falling into the trap that, based on a ton of experience and being around, but you've got another crack at the apple and you say, hey, I'm going to do it differently this time. And I'm going to do it the way that I want. I think that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited, bro. It'll be fun, dude. It'll be a nice couple of years here that we're going to run hard in the paint, baby. My helmet's on. I'm on the field. Let's go.
Absolutely. And time kind of crept up for me. I didn't realize that your wedding's just a few weeks away here. Congratulations,
Next
man.
Friday, dude.
Woo! Holy hell. And today's the 7th of January for folks listening.
17th of January in Miami. It'll be a good time.
Nice. And that's where she's from, right?
She's from there. And so I wanted to make sure she moved out to Scottsdale when we made that decision. Yeah. So this is my kind of way to kind of give back a little bit and say, hey, let's have a wedding out in Miami or your friends and your family.
Sweet. Wow. Miami's not terrible. So I think that'll be pretty awesome.
It's not a terrible place to have a wedding.
Well, very cool, my man. Well, I greatly appreciate your time. I think this was a fantastic kind of dialogue going back and forth and hearing different viewpoints and really kind of circling back around, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. I mean, it's really important to kind of know exactly what you want and where you want to be, and kind of working towards that angle. Don't just scale to scale because it's like, oh, I need to do more, and really know why. Because without the why, it's not worth it.
Amen to that, bro.
Well, sweet, my man. Well, thank you very much. We'll catch up here soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. All right. See you, brother.
Peace.
Hey guys, as always, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Bottleneck Real Estate Virtual Assistants. These guys are fantastic. We've been using them for years in our business. They've really helped us scale. Hopefully you guys like them as much as we do. If you want to get in touch, it's bottleneckrealestate.com, bottleneckrealestate.com, and I think you will be very happy with them. If you got some good quality content out of that, if you think it would help anybody, please go to iTunes or SoundCloud or whoever you're listening to this on and subscribe to the podcast. Also, please give us a 5-star rating. It really helps get us out there. If you do subscribe and give us a 5-star rating, take a screenshot of it, email it over to info@robertheider.com, Robert, HEYDER.com, and register for you guys to win a free one-on-one coaching session with myself or one of our guests. They were nice enough to give up some of their time, so thank you for that. Also, please follow us on social media, Robert_Heider at Instagram, Robert_Heider at Instagram. We'll drop some really quality content there. Also, I almost forgot, if you guys want a free commercial real estate guide and commercial real estate analysis tool, just go to the website, robertheider.com, fill out that brief little form, and we'll email that over to you. It's a really, really good tool just to be able to analyze deals quickly, understand kind of what's going on, see if it's actually a deal. All right, guys, thanks. Until the next one.